Welcome to Nice and Blunt. My name is Adam Riancho, and it's time to update my wide receiver rankings. Also, give you more than what I've shown you in the past. I've already ranked my top 50, but it's time for some updates, as well as an extra 25 players I'm going to add on at the end of the video that I haven't mentioned before, at least not ranked straight up. So let's get to it. Let's tell you where I've changed my opinion based on the first 2 weeks of the preseason at the receiver position. At the top, I have not made any changes in the top six. I still have Lamb, followed by Tyreek, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jamar Chase, all in the same tier at the top, but CeeDee Lamb is still my unquestioned number one. I'm not worried about his contract negotiation as of this moment. Number 7 is where we get the first change in tier 2, I guess tier 3, where I did bump up Garrett Wilson above Puka Nacua because of his injury. The Rams are saying it's not that big of a deal, but it's just never great to be chasing injuries. They find you, and if I can avoid someone who did get hurt in the preseason, I'd rather go with Garrett Wilson, who I still have in the same tier, but with no injury. That is a tiebreaker in his favor. So Wilson moves up one spot, Puka down one pick, but I'm actually going to hold strong on Aiyuk at number 9. It still feels risky. I know he could get traded, but it feels like with every passing day, that just feels less likely. Like they have the trade in place with the Steelers. He already said no to the trade with the Patriots. The Browns are now out of the mix. And if he wanted to go to the Steelers, I think he would have done so already. So I feel confident that the Niners get the deal done. They've offered him $30 million, and it's just a matter of time before that gets signed. I think Aiyuk stays in San Francisco, and I think he's a top 10 receiver this year. I really do. I know the vibes are weird, but I trust his talent, and I'm a little worried that Deebo gets hurt, and Aiyuk is just their guy long term. You know his targets are going to be much higher this year than only 105 last season if he stays with San Francisco. At number 10, though, I'm moving up Marvin Harrison Jr. one spot. I think the outlook for him in Arizona, just there's so much volume headed his way. He could see 150 targets. And if you look at the wide receiver one in Arizona, at least with Cliff Kingsbury, there was top 6 numbers at the position that could happen for Marvin this year. So I think he's just so safe. While I do feel like there's a drop-off in value at receiver following number 8, I do have Marvin at number 10. I think he's a safe bet where he's going. But I dropped down Nico Collins 2 spots. He was previously at number 10. Now he's my number 12 guy. So he does move below Deebo Samuel. And Deebo, I think, would move up if Aiyuk does get traded. But I think even if he doesn't, Deebo has massive value himself, some high spike week potential, and he'll probably score 10 plus touchdowns in this offense. If anything were to happen to McCaffrey, his role in the run game would increase as well. So I'd rather just bet on a good offense, and that's why I do have Deebo and Nico back to back at 11 and 12 here, but I'm a little bit more confident in Diggs. I was kind of really underestimating Stephon Diggs earlier in the preseason, and that's why Nico moves down 2 spots. I still have him as a top 12 receiver, but in the following tier, I've dropped down Drake London, not in terms of rankings, but in terms of tiers. I previously had him in the same tier as Marvin and Aiyuk. Now I think London is not as safe, and he's in a different tier for me entirely. So he's still at number 13. I think he is the best in this tier, but with the assumptions you have to make regarding Kirk Cousins working out, I don't think he's as safe. He still feels a little overpriced, honestly, in the top of the second round. But I have Jaylen Waddle moving up 4 spots because of the upside he offers if Tyreek Hill were to go down. He would be a top 5 receiver instantly in that scenario. And last year he was very injured. He was really good as a rookie, and he could offer massive value. I still have him back-to-back with DeVonta Smith, but I'm more interested in these number 2 receivers, Waddle and Davante, because if anything happened to their number 1 alpha in their offense, then they would step up and probably be at worst like wide receiver 8 in the rankings that week. Like, there's just so much league-winning value if A.J. Brown or Tyreek were to get hurt. That's why I think I have to bump these 2 players up a little bit. And because Tyreek is older than A.J. Brown, it's a little bit more likely to happen with him, and that's why I have Waddle now overtaking DeVonta Smith. But I'm more confident in both of them. I think both of them have to move up my rankings because of the contingent upside that they offer. At 16, though, I'm staying put on DK Metcalf, but he does get jumped by Waddle and DeVonta Smith. There's an injury currently looming for Tyler Lockett, and DK is the clear alpha in his offense. He's a very safe investment, in my opinion. And the player moving down would be Mike Evans, moving down 2 spots to number 17. I think there's a world where he really regresses in terms of touchdown production and doesn't come as close to double-digit touchdowns this year. I think Godwin will be more of a factor. And Jaylen McMillan, the rookie wide receiver, is getting a lot of hype. I don't see as much volume for Mike Evans. At age 31, he probably is not a top 10 receiver like he was last year, but he's definitely top 20. I still think he's in the same tier. I still like taking Mike Evans, especially at a discount. He has been falling lately in ADP. But Cooper Kupp, I'm bumping up 1 spot. Not because I'm more excited about Kupp, although you could argue you should be with Puka's minor injury. I'm more so just fading Chris Olave. I've dropped Chris Olave from wide receiver 14 down to 19. He moves down 5 spots, and I just cannot get behind the Derek Carr New Orleans Saints offense. I know Michael Thomas is gone. There should be more volume available for Olave, but he's going to get double teamed almost every single play. And if anything happened to Kamara, this offense would be absolutely disgusting. And it's kind of disgusting already. So I don't see a lot of touchdown production. I think I was too high to put Olave at 14 previously. And he's definitely dropping down considerably for me in my ranks. 5 spots is one of the biggest drops at the position in my ranks. But at 20, I'm holding strong on Davante Adams. He's still in the same tier, and I'm also not high on the Raiders and their quarterback situation. But at 21, I'm bumping up DJ Moore, not in the rankings, but in the tiers. I previously had him in a different tier from the last players we brought up, and I think with the upside that Caleb Williams offers, DJ Moore feels safer. He never gets hurt, and he's their highest paid guy. That contract extension is a really good sign. And I think I was right to fade Keenan Allen. That means DJ Moore should see even more targets next year. At 21, he's still the same in the rankings, but he's in the next tier. I'm a little more confident in DJ at the moment. After that, though, not too many ranking changes. There's a few. Tank Dell at number 22 stays put, but I did bump up T. Higgins 3 spots. I think the connection he's going to have with Burrow early in the season is going to be really good because Jamar Chase is not practicing. And there's also some other guys in this tier that I'm fading just a little bit. So Higgins would also be elite if Jamar Chase were to get hurt. But if he does just put up the numbers we saw 2 seasons ago when Burrow was healthy, he would be top 15. And that's why I like his ADP price. In round 4, I think T. Higgins is a top 25 receiver. I have him here at number 23 now in the ranks. But I'm going to hold strong that George Pickens is still a top 25 receiver. The offense has looked bad with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, but I think they will be pivoting to Fields sooner rather than later. And we saw DJ Moore put up top 10 numbers with Fields last season. So Pickens going to see a massive target share. I'm worried about Arthur Smith a little bit, but from a upside standpoint, hard to find other guys with higher upside overall. He put up 1,100 yards last year with Kenny Pickett and some other backup quarterbacks. So I like Pickens. Still, I don't think they get Aiyuk in a trade. If they did, Pickens would fall down dramatically. But I'm still going to hold strong that Pickens is a top 25 receiver. Number 25, though, moving down 2 spots, I have Zay Flowers, and I'm still, comfortable with his floor, but Andrews, I think, is still their biggest red zone threat, and while I'm not worried about Rashad Bateman, there is some reports about Isaiah Likely getting more usage in the passing game this year and being on the field a lot more, so I don't see a ton of touchdown upside for Flowers. He's more of a floor play, and that's why I dropped him down 2 spots. Still in the same tier, but a little less confident than I was previously when I had him at 23. Right behind him, though, I have Amari Cooper, who moves down 1 spot, and I just don't really want to put all my eggs in the Cleveland Browns basket. I don't trust Deshaun Watson, and Jameis Winston is probably not as good as Joe Flacco was last season. So there's upside with Cooper, but they also added Judy. I'm pumping the brakes a little bit, dropping him just one spot overall. However, moving up 2 spots, I have Stephon Diggs, so I think I may have overlooked a little bit too much. I'm still low on him compared to his ADP. I prefer Tank Dell by 5 picks overall, but Diggs at 29 previously just felt too low, and I did drop down Nico Collins 2 spots, so I bumped up Diggs 2 spots respectively. So a little higher on Diggs, just not like over the moon on him next season. I think he's the number 3 receiver on the Texans. But that means he jumps Malik Neighbors and Michael Pittman, so they move down 1 spot. I'm still low on the Giants offense with Neighbors and Daniel Jones. That's not something I want to bet on at all. And despite his talent, I just don't see a lot of touchdown upside in New York. And with Pittman, he's going to see a lot of volume, especially with Josh Downs getting hurt. I thought I would have moved him up, but I still just don't trust the red zone usage with Richardson yet. I want to see it before I fully endorse it. And while I still have him in the same tier as Tank Dell, you could put him as high as 22 and I wouldn't think you were crazy. I just think it's a run first offense. And with AD Mitchell and Josh Downs in the mix, I'm not dying to take Pittman, honestly. I pass on Pittman quite a bit. So he moves down to 29. He's fine, just not my favorite. But the biggest riser overall in my ranks in this same tier is Rashee Rice. It looks so unlikely that he gets suspended at this point. If it did happen, I think I'd be shocked. And his court date still hasn't been finalized. So until that's resolved, it's just not going to happen in terms of a suspension from the NFL. And there's also the injury to Hollywood Brown at the moment. So Rashee is going to start the year off hot. And I think he is the number 1 receiver for Patrick Mahomes behind Travis Kelce, of course. And that is really valuable. So top 30, I think, is a decent price for him. He moves up 16 spots. I was worried about it. I was still reluctant to really endorse him, but once I posted him as my wide receiver 46, I was like, this feels way too low. And yeah, obviously he's been rising very quickly up the board, and now he's my number 30 receiver in the same tier as even Tank Dell at number 22. So a very flat tier here. 22 to 30 is kind of all the same. Some high upside, kind of touchdown dependent, but depending on the offense and the situation, you might have a league winner on your hands. The following tier, though, is a lot more of a floor type of play, and we'll see what happens. But I am bumping up Chris Godwin 1 spot, not because I'm more excited, but because I'm less excited about somebody else who I'll get to in just a moment. But Godwin is a very good touchdown regression candidate and will probably score closer to 8 touchdowns. Last year, he only had 3 total. That should change as he moves into the slot. But I'm officially putting Brian Thomas Jr. above Christian Kirk. I have them back-to-back here at 32-33. Kirk, I think, is still the better floor play, but I think Brian Thomas offers that league-winning potential, and I am very high on his talent. I really believe in the LSU product working out, and I think his quarterback situation is really good. I think he steps into that Calvin Ridley role, and Kirk, coming off an injury, could go down, and that's why I'd rather bet on the youth with Brian Thomas. There's just way more upside. And with a massive discount in ADP, I'm never drafting Christian Kirk. I draft Brian Thomas like crazy. So just going to double down and officially put Brian Thomas above Kirk. So Kirk falls 3 spots. He gets jumped by Rashee Rice, Chris Godwin, and Brian Thomas. But I'm also dropping down Lad McConkey 3 spots because of the Justin Herbert foot injury. Herbert appears to be healthy. As of this recording, he's back on the field out of the walking boot, but he's not going to be like 100% for a little while. And those are valuable reps in the preseason that he just missed out on over the last 2 weeks. So that's why I think the connection won't be as good as I expected. And I think it is worth dropping McConkey a little bit. But I'm still really confident in him. I think he's a really good value where he's going. At number 34, I still am happy to draft McConkey, but I prefer Brian Thomas. At number 35, I have Terry McLaurin, moves down 1 spot, and he gets jumped by Rashee Rice. So still the same opinion on McLaurin, and Jaden Daniels looks really good, so I might be too low on McLaurin, but I think he's just a floor play at the end of the day. I'm higher on Odunze, though. He's my number 36 receiver now, and I think I was right to be fading Keenan Allen. Rome has looked exceptional in the preseason, and I honestly want to put Rome even higher. He's in the same tier as Chris Godwin for me, so could be wide receiver 31, and I wouldn't fault you at all. I love Rome Odunze. This rounds out this tier. These 6 receivers I like a lot. But this next tier of receiver is a little bit more risky. And while he is moving up the board, I still don't fully trust Calvin Ridley in Tennessee with Will Levis. He's my number 37 receiver, moves up 5 spots, and that DeAndre Hopkins injury is the reason why. So we'll have a better connection, I think, early on, and Hopkins is 32 this season, so could always get hurt again. They paid Ridley a lot, so having him at 42 was probably too low, and with the injury to Hopkins, I'm more confident in his target share. But I'm also more confident in Diontae Johnson. I think I was a little too low on him, ranking him at 41 previously. And if he has an Adam Thielen type of season as the number 1 receiver for Bryce Young, I'm still going to be too low on him here at 38. So a lot of volume headed his way. He could see 150 targets this season, and that's what makes him so safe. But that offense in Carolina just doesn't offer a lot of touchdown upside at the end of the equation. But I don't think you can go wrong drafting Diontae Johnson. Excellent value as a top 40 receiver. The depth at the position is just so good. But 39 and 40, moving down 4 spots overall, are Jaden Reed and Christian Watson. And while they still offer the same upside as I thought they did before, I am a little bit more excited about Romeo Doubs and Dontayvion Wicks in this offense. I think it's a true 4-man rotation. And although I do still think Reed and Watson are the more talented guys, definitely the safer picks of the 4, they're just not going to see like all of the snaps. They will come off the field a little bit. Watson has that injury risk. Reed is a decent slot receiver, but maybe the touchdown production evades both of them this year, and perhaps getting Doubs or Wicks much later in the draft is actually like a huge league-winning steal, and it's possible that they could really let you down based on where you draft them compared to the other 2, who Matt LaFleur talks about all under the same umbrella as like the rotating number 1 receiver for this team. So they all have their roles. I still prefer Reed and Watson, but I think having them at 35, 36 was a little too high. I've dropped them both down by 4 picks overall at the position, but still good options. I still like them a lot. Investing in the Packers offense is never a bad idea. Number 41, though, dropping down just 1 spot, is Keon Coleman, and this still feels a little too low, honestly, but he's a rookie. I think he will have kind of a slow start. However, Curtis Samuel has a turf toe injury, so maybe you're more excited about Keon overall, but I think he's more of a late season stash than someone that contributes immediately out the gate. Moving down 4 spots, though, is Xavier Worthy, who you would expect moves up given Hollywood Brown's injury, but I was just so low on Rashee Rice that that's why I have to lower some expectations on Xavier Worthy. He's looked decent in the preseason playing with Mahomes, but I think his skill set is going to be very hard to bet on a weekly basis. He'll have massive spike week games and then some games where he disappears, and I think that risk is a little too difficult to bet on. At his price, I'm fading him just a little bit. 4 spots, but it's still in the same tier. He's still a decent value, just not my favorite Chiefs receiver anymore. Number 43, though, moving up 2 spots, is JSN. And with the injury to Tyler Lockett, I think there will be more volume available for Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. But Keenan Allen, I'm staying put on. I told you earlier, I do not want to draft him. I think he's the bust of these 3 Bears receivers, and he's not getting any help during Hard Knocks. So at number 44, I think he's the guy you want to fade and pass on if you're drafting a Bears receiver. I definitely prefer DJ Moore by a wide margin, and I think Rome Odunze is going to have that league-winning upside as the season goes on. Rome will overtake Keenan if he's not already overtaken him already. So Keenan at 44, I could still be too high on, in all honesty, but last year was just so good, I don't think I can put him any lower. Moving forward, though, now we enter a riskier tier, and I kind of want to include Keenan in this tier, but there's injury concerns as well as suspension concerns in this next tier, so it is a different equation for sure. But 45, I have Jordan Addison, who actually moves up 5 spots in the rankings. His court date is set during that week 6 bye in LA, and it might not get sorted out until November. And that's why he might not get suspended this year. It might happen next season. But if it does, it's only going to be 3 games. That's what the league protocol says it would be for a DUI. And if, let's say, he misses weeks like 8 through 11, that doesn't matter. If he misses weeks 14 through 17, that's a big deal. It is possible, but his upside's really high. And I do think Sam Darnold as his quarterback is a decent, serviceable guy. With the injury to TJ Hawkinson early in the season, I think Addison helps you start off hot and win some games. I'm a little more confident in Addison at the moment. But the biggest faller in my rankings would be Marquise Brown, moving down 10 spots overall. That injury is really going to mess with his season. He's been injury prone the last 2 years, missed a lot of games as well, so not excited to see it. And it's kind of a crowded offense at the end of the day. He might be an afterthought for the Chiefs and Mahomes, even when he does get healthy. But at the moment, not excited to draft him. Definitely not looking good as he plummets down the board. If you took a lot of him a month ago in the 5th round. DeAndre Hopkins, though, comes in here at number 47, moves down 5 spots. So Ridley moves up 5 spots. Hopkins moves down 5 spots, and I no longer have them back-to-back. The injury at age 32 is a big red flag, and while he is talented, I don't want to overlook him. It's the Titans offense at the end of the day, and I'm not like dying to take him anymore. But moving down 1 spot would be Josh Palmer, and I still think he's a good floor play. I think he offers very consistent flex appeal in regular season-long drafts as you have to make those weekly decisions. But the injury to Justin Herbert is not great, so I can't feel more excited about him with fewer reps with Herbert in this new offense. He does have a connection with him that dates back several years, but I still prefer McConkey. I think DJ Chark will be in the mix, and this offense is not going to pass it like crazy. So Palmer's still fine. I think he's a good top 50 receiver, but I am not as excited as I was about 4 or 5 weeks ago when I ranked him at 47. 48, though, still fine. There's some upside. Jameson Williams, though, stays put at 49, and that is it for this tier. But now we're moving on to touchdown-dependent options, and now we're starting with players you have not seen me talk about on the channel. At number 50, I have Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos, paid to be the number 1 receiver in Denver. However, last season, he was extremely touchdown dependent. He scored 10 touchdowns, and he was not even a top 30 receiver on a per-game basis. So the touchdowns are definitely coming down this year. I'd be shocked if he puts up double-digit touchdowns again. And if you look at his numbers, he barely had more targets and catches than Jerry Jeudy. His yardage was only like 25 yards more than Jeudy last season, and we all considered Jeudy a massive bust. Nobody wanted him in their starting lineup. So there's a world where Sutton falls back down to like 3 or 4 touchdowns this season and is a massive bust. Even at this ranking, he could be top 40 again. He could also not even be top 60, and I'm very worried that Bo Nix spreads it around to every option he can, and Sutton is not the go-to target in the red zone like he was for Russell Wilson. So Sutton, I think, is actually a very risky bet, but he's definitely the guy in Denver, and it's just a question of how efficient does that offense actually look and how big of a target share does he actually have. But I don't think it'll be that much different than last season in terms of volume, and he wasn't elite in that stat. It was purely based on touchdown production. So not my favorite pick, honestly. Feels risky, but from a floor standpoint, at wide receiver 50, he's fine. I'm not dying to draft him, but you can take him and not feel atrocious about it at the end of the day. Moving down 3 spots, though, I have Curtis Samuel, and a turf toe injury does not help him. He also gets work in the run game, but for a receiver with turf toe at this stage in the preseason, really not good, and that's why I'm less confident in him. But he does know the offense. Joe Brady likes him a lot, and I do still see some upside for him in Buffalo. But I've moved up Khalil Shakir to be right behind him in the rankings. I think Shakir actually has a little bit more appeal given the Curtis Samuel injury, and there's a world where Shakir is actually the most valuable Bills receiver overall. I think it will rotate between the three. I'd rather have Keon Coleman, who they drafted with the 33rd pick in the NFL draft, top of the second. And I definitely think there's more upside with Keon. But Shakir, a 5th round pick, has a decent floor. And last year, his catch percentage was amazing. He caught 87% of his targets last season, 39 receptions on 45 targets for 611 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's not amazing, but from a safety net standpoint, he could see a lot of volume this year from Josh Allen. There are 284 available targets from last year's offense, so it has to go somewhere. It can all go to Kincaid and Keon Coleman. Shakir, I now have back-to-back with Curtis Samuel. I'm a little higher now on Shakir than I was a month ago, but right behind them, I have 2 Packers receivers in Romeo Doubs and Dontayvion Wicks, and I think they offer really good value in best ball. I'm a little worried about them in season long, but if you read the reports, Doubs might be the go-to guy for Jordan Love when they need it most. Like if it's 3rd and 8 and he has to throw it to someone, it's likely going to go to Doubs. Jordan Love has a great friendship with Romeo, and he did score 8 touchdowns last year. There is some high upside for Doubs, who also was the best player for the Packers receivers in the playoffs. He played 2 games against the Cowboys and Niners. He had 12 targets, caught 10 of them for 234 yards. That's 23 yards per catch and a touchdown. He was phenomenal in the playoffs. So his connection with Love is definitely enticing, and he's really a player to watch. He could be more valuable than Jayden Reed and Christian Watson straight up. And same applies with Wicks. Wicks looks really good. His tape is excellent, and he did have 2 games with over 90 yards in his last 6 regular season games last year when Christian Watson was off the field. So there's high upside with Wicks, and they're going to rotate all 4 guys. It's just a question of how often do they get on the field, and that's the problem here, though. Like, how confident are you knowing for a fact every single week that you're starting the right Packers receiver? It's going to mix and match, pivot from one guy to the other, and that's the risk you're taking. But I do think I could be too low on them. I kind of want to put them inside my top 50, but here at 53, 54, they're better best ball picks than regular season picks, and that's why I think I'd rather just bet on Jayden Reed and Christian Watson, who I think are more talented straight up. But really good options. I like both of these later round Packers receivers a lot. I've been taking them very consistently on the live stream as of late. But starting the next tier is where I'm starting to get a little bit worried, where we're really kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, very touchdown dependent, and there is some risk a lot with these guys. At 55, I have Brandon Cooks, who turns 31 in September. His stats have dropped each of the last 2 years. He only had 81 targets last year. He did catch 8 touchdowns, though. And if you look at his final 11 games after the bye, when this offense clicked, he was averaging 10.7 points per game, but only thanks to 7 touchdowns. He was giving you 3.7 catches per game for 50 yards per game. The volume was not safe. He needed a touchdown for it to work out. So high variance type of guy, very boom bust, also touchdown dependent. He likely loses some touchdowns to Jake Ferguson this season, but he's still in a very narrow offense. I don't want to put Jalen Tolbert above him just yet. I still think Cooks is the wide receiver 2, number 3 target for Dak, and that's saying something. He's going to be on the field for pretty much all of the 2 wide receiver sets, and that snap share is a tiebreaker compared to a lot of these guys. I think he is still valuable. I'm still comfortable betting on one final productive season for Cooks at the age of 31. But this is probably the last year he offers legit fantasy value, and it's pretty risky. He's very touchdown dependent. Not my favorite pick anymore in round 10. Number 56, though, I have Tyler Lockett, who turns 32 this season in September, currently dealing with a leg injury that is not considered serious, but definitely not ideal at his age. I think he will be overtaken by JSN this season, and how efficient can he really be with Geno Smith throwing him the ball? There's not going to be 3 receivers that are viable every week in Seattle with Geno. So either we're way too high on JSN and DK Metcalf, or it's really time to start fading Lockett, and that's what I'm doing. I'll bet against Lockett this season. Last year, he averaged 9.6 points per game in 15 games with Geno, and he's not going to get better unless someone gets hurt. I think he's the most likely guy to get hurt of the three. So no thanks with Lockett these days. I'm not dying to take him, but at 56, you could do worse. Number 57, though, I got Jaylen Polk, who is the cheapest wide receiver 1 in the NFL. For the Patriots, though, it's not a flashy pick. That offense is really bad. And he is a rookie. He could start slow. Reports are that KJ Osborne might actually be the guy you want week 1, but I do think he'll overtake him mid-season. And I think long-term Polk is the guy I'm most interested in. It's just how much value does the Patriots offense really offer? I think you want Drake May under center, so you at least have someone to believe in and get excited about long term. With Brissett, not ideal at all. But 58, I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here. It's not like I'm really endorsing him that high. At 58, he's still kind of a liability on your bench. But I have Darnell Mooney here of the Atlanta Falcons. We're getting pretty desperate in the rankings at this point, and I'm just trying to lock up guaranteed snaps at the position. Mooney is the clear number 2 receiver for the Falcons. He's their number 4 weapon, though, behind London, Pitts, and Bijan. So not like ideal, but he will be on the field almost 100% of the time, and Kirk Cousins is his quarterback. That is one of the better guys moving forward that you can have as your quarterback. So I'm going to read into this contract. They paid him 3 years, $39 million in free agency, and Rondale Moore going down for the season is one more reason to feel confident in Mooney. So I think he could show some flashes this season. What we remember him doing in 2021 when he had 140 targets, 81 catches, 1,055 yards, and 4 touchdowns. There is some upside for Mooney. He's just touchdown dependent and more of a spike week type of guy at this point in his career. Number 59, though, I have Jacoby Myers, another number 2 receiver, this time in Las Vegas, and he will be overtaken by Brock Bowers, more than likely. So how much value does he really have with Gardner Minshew at quarterback? I don't think he has a lot. He's not a player I really want to bet on at all. And while he was productive last year, he looked a lot better from a statistical standpoint with Josh McDaniels as the head coach than Antonio Pierce. I would rather have Mooney, who's going much later. I think all these number 2 receivers, from Cooks, Mooney, Myers, and a few other guys, like, they're not that exciting. Just hoping for some touchdowns with them. But in the same tier, a big boom bust guy is Mike Williams of the Jets, their number 2 receiver. I'm not expecting much from him after a torn ACL. It's also a new offense, so it could be very shaky. But if healthy, he should be the number 3 target for Rodgers, and that could lead to a lot of touchdowns. We know what he offers: high spike week potential, followed by a 2-point game the next week where he completely disappears, and consistency is not his skill set. He also is consistently injured, and that's where the risk comes in. There's a lot of it with Mike Williams, but the payoff could really be valuable. There's a world where he does finish the top 45 receiver, maybe even top 40 at the position. So he's much better in best ball, but I think if he does stay healthy, he could possibly give you 800 plus yards and 8 touchdowns this year. It's not completely out of the question for that to happen. I'd just probably bet on like 600 yards and maybe like 5 touchdowns, more than likely. Number 61, though, is Gabe Davis, who's also much better in best ball, high variance with him. He either gives you like 20 points or literally a bagel. So massive liability in your starting lineup. If you're confident enough to bet on him, then good luck to you. You're going to need it. But maybe in Jacksonville, it's a lot different usage than what we saw in Buffalo last year. But he's just replacing Zay Jones, not Calvin Ridley, in my opinion. I'm much more confident in Brian Thomas, and I don't think there's enough volume to keep him in your lineup every week. I would rather bet against Gabe Davis if it's not best ball. Best ball is the only scenario I want to take him, because I never have to make my bet on when to start him. He's very likely to give you 0, more so than 20 points. So that's why I don't like him, but it is worth noting he got paid 3 years, $39 million, just like Darnell Mooney. That's why I have him in the same tier as Mooney. But last 2 guys in this tier are also clear number 2 receivers in their offense. I got Rashid Shaheed here at 62. It's New Orleans, though. I don't want to bet on the Saints at all. And even in the 6 games without Michael Thomas, which is what we expect this year, Michael Thomas is no longer on the team. Rashid Shaheed didn't really step up that much. He only gave you 3.3 catches per game for 36 yards per game and 2 touchdowns in those 6 matchups. So 7.3 points per game is not good. He's a true boom bust guy. He can give you 15 plus points in a given week. He can also give you 3, and he's kind of like Gabe Davis and Mike Williams as well. Not a guy I really want to bet on. In New Orleans, I have no desire to bet on Derek Carr at all. So I'm not drafting Shaheed like ever. I am very low on Rashid Shaheed. I'm also very low on Jerry Jeudy, who was traded to Cleveland this offseason, then given a big contract extension, 3 years, $52.5 million. That's about 17 per on a per year basis. So maybe I'm really underestimating him, but I don't have much confidence in Deshaun Watson. I know Jeudy is a former first-round pick, 8th overall selection, but he's still only 25 years old, and maybe he proves me wrong, but I've been betting on him for the last several years, and he always burns me. He has never lived up to the hype that I have chosen to endorse. So I'm just off him this year. I think I'm just done with taking Jeudy, and I think until Amari Cooper leaves, I don't really want to bet on him in Cleveland. The Deshaun Watson quarterback situation is not one I feel safe investing in. So no thank you. I'd rather just take Amari and Njoku and hope for the best. You have to decide between him and Jerome Ford in the ADP, and I'd way rather take Jerome Ford than Jeudy. So no thanks for me. I get it if you're higher, but I have him in the same tier as Brandon Cooks. I could put him 55 and it would make sense. Moving forward though, we enter a new tier at 64, and now I think you're taking like massive gambles at the position. They're probably going to be on a lot of waiver wires in shallower leagues. But I have A.D. Mitchell and Josh Downs back-to-back here at 64, 65. And A.D. Mitchell's very talented, but he fell in the draft maybe for a good reason. Sometimes he takes plays off, and that's why I'm a little worried about him. But he's a big, fast player with an elite play caller and head coach in Shane Steichen. I do want to bet on Shane Steichen, but if I'm not stacking him with Anthony Richardson, I just don't see the value in doing so. And the injury to Josh Downs makes him more appealing, but he's still hard to bet on in a slightly crowded offense that's also a run-first team. Richardson is hard to trust from a passing standpoint. I kind of want to see it before I start Mitchell in my lineup. I doubt it really is consistent this year. He could look a lot like Alec Pierce when it's all said and done. But behind him is Josh Downs, who I liked more than Mitchell before the injury happened, but now it's not great. He's a talented slot receiver, but last year when he got hurt, he was not the same player after he came back, and it's hard to trust Richardson getting all 3 receivers involved on a week-to-week basis. Until we see it, I'd rather avoid drafting him if I can. Number 66, though, is the number 3 wide receiver, at least the favorite to be that in the Rams offense, and there's a world where he offers top 50 value at the position. He was scoring a lot of touchdowns when on the field last season. And this is a team that deploys 11 personnel almost all of the time. So if he holds on to that number 3 wide receiver role all year long, he will play a lot of snaps. He's also a decent contingency play if Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp miss any time. But Jordan Whittington could overtake him. If not, though, he plays with Stafford, and that could lead to a lot of touchdowns again. Demarcus Robinson is actually someone I've taken more than any other player on Underdog, and I actually love his value, even though he's risen up the board consistently over the offseason. But a little bit risky with some recent hype on Whittington, but definitely the favorite to be on the field in 3 wide receiver sets. We'll see a lot of those in LA next year. Number 67 is Michael Wilson, the clear number 2 receiver in Arizona, who does have upside, but we really need to see him take a leap in year 2 after adding Marvin Harrison. That's not a guarantee to happen, and he's very boom bust. I kind of want to put him closer to like Shaheed, but in Arizona, I don't love him that much, in all honesty. Like, he's still a little risky at the end of the day, but a solid value pick if you are desperate for receiver where he's going. Right behind him at 68, I have Andre Yoshivas, who looks like the favorite for the wide receiver 3 duties without Tyler Boyd, and that could offer a lot of touchdown upside in an elite passing offense with Joe Burrow as his quarterback. So I've been taking him over Jermaine Burton lately, and we'll see how that works out. But Yoshivas is an interesting pick that you'd probably end up dropping after week 1 after seeing very few targets. More than likely, it doesn't work out. And that's the case with all these receivers. I'm only going to give you my top 75, but all these remaining players I think are very risky at the position. And 69 is Jahan Dotson, who a few weeks ago I would have ranked higher, but has really been fading this offseason, not looking like super reliable in the preseason. He's playing a lot of snaps, but like late into the game, after the starters get benched, he's still on the field. And I feel like he's still trying to prove why he should have a job rather than like clearly overtake anybody else for that number 2 role. So De'Ami Brown and Luke McCaffrey, I think, will be a factor, and Jahan is not a lock to play in this offense. There's a world where he flashes the upside we saw as a rookie with 7 touchdowns. He could also look like the bust that we saw last year. And while he is a former first-round pick, I just don't think Daniels really trusts him until that is proven. I don't really want to bet on Dotson. I just kind of only want to take Terry McLaurin and maybe a shot on the running backs and Ben Sinnott. But I don't think he's gained the trust yet. I doubt it'll happen if it hasn't happened already. Number 70 is DJ Chark, the number 3 receiver for Justin Herbert. He has that deep catchability with an elite deep ball thrower, and it looks like he's the better guy, for fantasy at least, than Quentin Johnston. I have been taking DJ Chark over Quentin and feeling decent about it. But number 71 is Jalen Tolbert, who has been flying up the board lately, been playing well in training camp, but once CeeDee Lamb is back on the field, how many snaps is he really going to get in terms of playing time? He is the favorite, though, to replace Michael Gallup's production, which isn't saying much, but if he does overtake Cooks, then he could be a league winner, could offer top 50 value at the position. And if that doesn't happen, though, there's very little value for him. So he's not going to see more than 5 targets per game. I'm never starting him until I see it on a week-to-week basis in the red zone. He needs to score touchdowns for me to trust him. But number 72 is Xavier Legette, who's a first-round pick this season, a rookie with high upside. He's a big, strong, and fast player, but apparently struggling to really get on the field. He might be still behind Jonathan Mingo. He's definitely behind Adam Thielen. But at this point, what do you have to lose? He does have some high upside given this late in the rankings. But number 73 is Jalen McMillan, who is a player I loved in terms of talent coming out of college. Good camp reports for him, but at best he's the number 4 target in Tampa behind Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Rachaad White. How valuable really is that at the end of the day with Baker at quarterback? Number 74, a player I almost never draft, but is the number 2 receiver in the Giants offense. It's Wan'Dale Robinson, but I don't think that's valuable at all. Maybe a decent floor in terms of target share, but very minimal touchdown upside. I think kind of best case scenario, we're going to get like 7 points from him. And that's not really moving the needle at all for me. So you could rank him higher, but I don't like taking him. I just think until Drew Lock is the quarterback, I'm never going to feel like somewhat excited. And then when that happens, like, yikes, that's kind of gross. But last player I'll mention for this video is Marvin Mims Jr. of the Denver Broncos, who is the favorite to be replacing Jerry Jeudy. So probably sees the most targets. He's a former second-round pick, but Bo Nix is still a little unproven. And until we see it, it's hard to make any bet on a Broncos receiver other than Courtland Sutton. So he could fly up the board, but he could also stay here. He could get overtaken by Tim Patrick or Troy Franklin possibly. Maybe Greg Dulcich vultures a lot of touchdowns. So I don't feel confident at this point. It does feel risky, but who knows? He could have some value. I'm not going to draft him, though. Maybe a waiver wire pick once we see it. And then these last 5 players I'll just flash on the screen. I got Boyd, followed by Rashad Bateman, KJ Osborne, Adam Thielen, Ricky Pearsall. There's a world where they're valuable, but more than likely it just doesn't happen this season, given their situation. Unless Aiyuk gets traded, I can't see anybody else other than Pearsall moving up the board drastically. So that's it for my wide receiver updated rankings. Here are the top 63 at Jerry Jeudy. I think once you hit A.D. Mitchell, Josh Downs, it's kind of like, these are just waiver wire guys, not going to offer like a shit ton of value, unless it's a very deep league and you need that position. But feel more confident in the top 45 this season than I did any other year before, and all the way through even like Romeo Doubs, Dontayvion Wicks. Still feels like there's a lot of value to be had at the position. So that's it for me. If you enjoyed, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I will be updating some other rankings, but also giving you like must draft picks as well. We're getting real close to the season, so down to the wire. It's been fun. I can't wait for kickoff week 1, will be exciting. But my name is Adam Riancho, and that's it for me in this video. Thank you very much for watching. Nice and blunt. I'll see you next time.